All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be focusing on the Philippines
Yeah,
and the impact of Super Typhoon Man-yi.
right.
We're diving into this news article from Danan.com. It's a Pakistani newspaper.
Interesting.
And, we're going to unpack some really fascinating and honestly kind of scary details about this storm,
Yeah.
which is the sixth major storm to hit in just 1 month.
Wow. Yeah, the Philippines has really been going through it.
It's been relentless.
It really has. Understanding the power of these storms, especially in the context of climate change,
Yeah.
it's really crucial these days.
The article keeps mentioning super typhoon, but what does that even mean? Is it like typhoon plus?
Well, it's not just like they added super, to be dramatic or anything.
Right.
It's actually a scientific classification
Oh, okay.
indicating that there are winds of at least 240 kilometers per hour sustained.
Okay, so that's fast, obviously.
Yeah.
But how fast is that really? Like, can you put that into perspective a little bit?
Well, think about it this way. Those winds are stronger than most bullet trains.
Really?
Yeah, imagine that kind of force hitting, a structure, a building.
Oh, wow.
They can just rip buildings apart, toss cars around like they're toys,
Wow.
turn everyday debris into, deadly projectiles.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
So this one, Manny, slammed into Catanduanes Island with winds of 195 kilometers per hour.
right.
So not quite super typhoon level.
Not quite, but still incredibly dangerous. I mean, those winds are still stronger than most hurricanes.
Right.
And on top of that, you have gusts even more ferocious.
Oh, wow.
Some were clocked at 325 kilometers per hour.
Jeez.
And then you add the storm surges on top of that,
Yeah, the article mentioned those.
which can be even more destructive than the wind itself.
They said something about waves as high as a 4-story building.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
it's insane.
That's just insane. Can you break down like what causes a storm surge?
Okay, so imagine a typhoon, like a giant fan. It's pushing this massive amount of water towards the coast.
Right.
And that force, combined with, the low atmospheric pressure during the storm,
Yeah.
causes sea levels to rise dramatically,
Oh, wow.
sometimes by several meters.
Wow.
And that's a storm surge.
Okay.
It's essentially a wall of water just slamming onto the shoreline.
So it's not just a wave, it's
Yeah.
like the whole ocean rising up.
Yeah, pretty much.
No wonder coastal areas like Manila are so vulnerable.
Exactly. And, the Philippines has over 7,000 islands,
Right.
and a lot of them have these densely populated coastal regions.
Right.
So a storm surge in Manila, that could be catastrophic. You'd have widespread flooding, vital infrastructure would be damaged,
Yeah.
and you could displace hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Gosh. The article mentioned that over 650,000 people evacuated ahead of the storm.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like moving a whole city.
it's a huge testament to the Philippine government's efforts to prepare for disasters.
Yeah.
But it also really highlights the logistical challenge they have
Yeah.
of protecting so many people from these increasingly powerful storms.
And even with those evacuations, the human cost is still heartbreaking. I mean, we're talking about people huddled in evacuation centers,
Yeah,
listening to the storm rage outside,
right.
fearing for their homes and their loved ones.
It's terrifying.
And sadly, lives have been lost. The article mentions over 160 deaths from these recent storms.
Yeah, and those numbers, those are real people.
Mm,
Families torn apart,
yeah.
livelihoods destroyed. The trauma and the economic hardship, faced by survivors.
Right?
It can be overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially when these events happen so frequently,
Yeah.
like they have been.
Yeah.
And it's not just the immediate impact,
Right.
The frequency of these storms is becoming a major concern.
Yeah.
This is the sixth major storm to hit the Philippines in just 1 month, which is incredibly unusual.
It makes you wonder, how are they even supposed to rebuild and recover
Yeah,
when they're constantly getting hit?
exactly.
It's like they're stuck in this never-ending cycle.
It is a cycle of disaster and recovery.
Right.
And that's where the connection to climate change
Yeah.
becomes even more important.
Ah,
It's not just that we're seeing more storms.
yeah.
These storms are also becoming more intense.
Right.
Warmer ocean temperatures are fueling these weather systems.
Ah. Okay, so we need to talk about climate change, right?
Oh.
It's like the elephant in the room,
Yeah,
or the super typhoon in the ocean, I guess.
right.
The article doesn't really go into much detail.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the link between climate change and these extreme weather events?
Well, the science is pretty clear. As greenhouse gas emissions trap heat in the atmosphere,
Yeah.
the planet warms, and that includes the ocean.
Right.
And warmer oceans provide more energy for storms to develop and strengthen.
So it's all connected.
It is.
It's wild to think about, like, our actions here, the cars we drive, the energy we use.
Mm.
It's all connected to what's happening in the Philippines right now.
Yeah.
It makes it feel so much more real and urgent.
Absolutely. It's a global issue.
Yeah.
With very real local consequences. And while we need to, address the root causes of climate change
Yeah.
by reducing emissions,
Right.
we also have to think about adaptation.
Right.
How can communities better prepare for these increasingly intense storms?
So what can be done besides, the obvious things like reducing emissions?
Sure.
What are some practical steps that communities can take?
Well, there are several key areas to focus on. One is strengthening early warning systems.
Okay.
We need to make sure that communities have accurate and timely information about approaching storms,
Yeah.
and that this information reaches everyone,
Right.
even those in remote areas.
So people have time to evacuate or take shelter.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it's not just about getting the information out.
Right.
It's also about educating people on what to do when they receive a warning.
Okay.
Building a culture of preparedness is crucial.
It's like that saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly.
Investing in preparedness now could save countless lives and resources down the line.
Absolutely. Another crucial aspect is infrastructure.
Okay.
We need to design and build structures that can withstand these extreme weather events.
Right.
That means stronger buildings, reinforced bridges, seawalls to protect coastal communities,
Yeah.
better drainage systems to prevent flooding. It's about building resilience into the very fabric of our communities.
It sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is.
But I guess the alternative is even more unthinkable.
It is.
To just sit back and watch these storms devastate communities year after year.
And we have to remember that these storms don't just impact individual communities.
Right.
They have ripple effects throughout entire regions,
Yeah.
and even globally.
The article mentions Man-yi is projected to potentially hit Luzon, the most populous island in the Philippines,
Yeah.
and then head back out over the open ocean.
Right.
So what happens to a typhoon after it makes landfall?
Well, typhoons draw their energy from warm ocean water.
Right.
When they move over land, they start to lose that energy source
Okay.
and weaken. However, they don't necessarily just vanish.
Right.
Crossing a relatively small landmass like Luzon
Yeah.
might not be enough to significantly diminish Man-yi's power.
Oh, wow.
It could potentially re-intensify over the warm waters of the South China Sea
Oh, God.
and pose a threat to other coastal regions.
So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
One storm impacting multiple areas, even across borders.
Exactly. And this highlights the importance of international collaboration.
Yeah.
Sharing weather data, coordinating disaster response efforts, and providing aid to affected countries.
Right.
It's a global challenge that demands a global response.
And speaking of global responsibility,
Yeah.
it feels important to point out that the Philippines is bearing the brunt of these climate-fueled storms. Yet, their contribution to global emissions is relatively small
Yeah.
compared to, say, industrialized nations.
Mm-hmm.
Does that raise any questions for you, listener, about fairness and responsibility on a global scale?
It's a point worth pondering.
Yeah.
Those who have contributed the most to climate change
Right.
have a moral obligation to assist vulnerable nations like the Philippines
Yeah.
in adapting to its effects and building resilience.
So it's not just about reducing our own emissions,
No.
it's also about supporting those on the front lines
Yes.
who are facing the most severe consequences.
Precisely. It's about global solidarity
Yeah.
and recognizing that climate change is a shared challenge
Right.
that requires a collective response.
I mean, it can feel kind of overwhelming to think about, right?
Yeah.
These huge global problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get lost in the scale of it all.
I understand that feeling, but it's important to remember that we're not powerless.
Okay.
Every action we take, even seemingly small ones, contributes to the solution.
So you're saying it's not all doom and gloom.
No.
There's still hope.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Think about it. We have the knowledge, the technology, and the resources to tackle this challenge.
Yeah.
What we need is the collective will to act.
So where do we even begin?
Well,
What can we do as individuals to make a difference?
there are so many ways to get involved.
Okay.
We can start by, making more sustainable choices in our daily lives, reducing our energy consumption,
Yeah.
using public transportation, choosing eco-friendly products.
Right.
Those individual actions might seem small,
Yeah.
but they add up.
It's like that saying, think globally, act
Yeah.
locally, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can also support organizations that are working on climate change solutions,
Right.
both locally and internationally.
Yeah.
I mean, there are amazing groups out there doing incredible work
Mm.
on everything from renewable energy to disaster relief.
And we can use our voices to advocate for change, right?
Absolutely.
Contact our elected officials, support policies that promote sustainability, talk to our friends and family about these issues.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Creating awareness and building a movement for change is crucial.
Yeah.
The more people who understand the urgency of this challenge, the more pressure there will be on governments and corporations to take action.
This whole conversation has been a whirlwind of information, honestly.
Yeah.
The sheer power of these typhoons,
Right.
the human cost,
Right.
the climate change connection.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
What stands out to you the most from all of this, listener?
It's a complex issue with so many layers, but for me, what really resonates is the resilience of the Filipino people.
Yeah.
Despite facing these incredible challenges, they continue to rebuild, adapt, and find hope.
Right.
Their strength is truly inspiring.
It makes you realize that we humans are pretty tough.
Yeah.
We can overcome incredible obstacles when we work together.
We can.
And maybe that's the key takeaway here.
Yeah.
We're not alone in this. We're all in this together,
Right.
and we have the power to create a better future.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
The challenges are real,
Yeah.
but so are the solutions.
Yeah.
It's up to us to choose hope, to choose action,
Right.
and to choose a path toward a more sustainable and resilient world.
We started this deep dive with the terrifying force of Super Typhoon Man-yi,
We did.
and we've explored its devastating impacts,
Yeah.
the role of climate change, the challenges of preparedness,
Yeah.
and the need for global solidarity.
It's been a journey, hasn't it?
It really has.
From the eye of the storm to the shores of hope.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Imagine yourself as a leader in your community.
Okay.
What steps would you take to protect your community from the impacts of climate change, whether it's extreme weather events,
Yeah,
rising sea levels, or other challenges?
right.
How would you inspire others to join the movement for a more sustainable future?
Let those questions guide your thoughts, listener.
Yeah.
This deep dive might be ending,
Right.
but the conversation continues.
Thanks for joining us on this intense but important exploration.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.